So question 11, it's in the calc assume part of the paper, and it's actually, we know just about everything we need to know here to do it on the calculator, and it's 3 marks, so we could do it that way, but let's have a look at trying it without the calculator first, and then we'll look at doing it again with a calculator. So on the formula sheet under complex numbers, it reminds us of a few home truths, that when we want the argument of a quotient, it's the difference of the arguments. So and here we're after the argument of u, and u is sort of buried in here. Well, u is z over 2 minus 2i, and the conjugate of z times 1 plus I is w, and w is 2 cis pi by 3 over here. So where do we begin? So I guess we sort of work backwards and say, right, the argument of u is the argument of z minus the argument of 2 minus 2i, which is the argument of z plus pi by 4. Positive because it was subtract the argument, and of course 2 across and 2 down is a negative argument, but then the negative made it positive. Then the conjugate, the argument of the conjugate of z, so that's back up here. So obviously it's going to be w divided by 1 plus I. So we need to subtract those arguments. So the argument of the conjugate will be argument of w minus arg of 1 plus I. So, and of course 1 plus I is positive pi by 4, but again we're subtracting it here. So then the argument of of z, now this is the conjugate, so to get the argument of z we just need to negate this one. So it's negative, and then the argument of w we're told is pi by 3, and the argument of 1 plus I is pi by 4, and the difference is pi by 12, so then we end up with minus pi by 12. And finally, the argument of u then is going to be the argument of z. Oh, here it is, argument of z plus pi by 4. So it's minus pi by 12 plus pi by 4. And that simplifies to pi by 6. So not too hard without the calculator. And then if I scroll down, we now need to determine the magnitude of u exactly. And again, the formula sheet tells us that the quotient of a magnitude is the magnitude of the quotient. So how do we use that? So again, the magnitude of u is magnitude of z over magnitude 2 minus 2i, which is magnitude z over 2 root 2. And then the magnitude of z will be the same as the magnitude of the conjugate, which is going to be the magnitude of w divided by the magnitude of 1 plus I, which is going to be 2 over root 2. And hence, now we know what the magnitude of z is. We just need to divide it by 2 root 2. So when we divide by this, we basically flip and multiply and end up with a half. So that's without a calculator. Now let's just try it again with a calculator. So here we go. I'll flick my calculator up. Same question. But this time, well, what has been going on in here? So we'll head back to main and do a quick tidy up, edit, clear all, and clear all variables while we're at it. And then off we go. So we know that w is, we're told it's 2 cis pi by 3. I could get that going like this. 2 shift 9 for cis, shift 0 for pi divided by 3. Close the brackets, and then I'll store that because that is w using the variable w. So we know, ClassPad always the first to remind us. So we'll go into standard mode complex, and we'll try that one more time. There it is. So we've got w sorted out. And if we hit simp, then that's a simpler version of it, 1 plus root 3i. So for our 3 marks, I'd probably write that down first. So then the conjugate of z is w over 1 plus I. So we now basically need to divide w by 1 plus I. So here is w on the line above. So we just want to tap divide, open a set of brackets, 1 plus shift dot, and hit execute. And again, we could tidy this up. Probably the best way is to use the complex expand, which will sort it out into its real and imaginary parts. So here is basically, this was the conjugate of z. So then the actual z will be this number, but we obviously need to change the positive sign to a negative there. So here's, and then we could write that down for another mark. And then finally, we need to take the conjugate of this. So let's let ClassPad do the work for us. the conjugate of that, which obviously just changes the sign. And then we want to divide this by 2 minus 2i. So divided brackets 2 minus 2i. And that didn't take long at all with ClassPad. Looks pretty ugly. I guess we better simplify it again. So complex expand and do it. And there it is. How tidy is that? Now the last thing is to find the argument and the magnitude. So if we just use the complex converter into trig form, then there we go. The argument is pi by 6. And that's basically part A done. Then when we slide down to, let me just try and slide down, here we go, to part B, determine the magnitude of u. So it's only a 2 marker, and we could just say, right, it's a half. There it is. And we're done. So a pretty easy 5 marks on the calculator as well there. So not sure what the examiners really wanted us to do.